You will conclude the evening by feeding the piranhas. Simona DePinto walked down 8th Avenue with the words of her new employer rustling through her thoughts. One of the biggest diamond buyers in New York City, Yuri Perlman, had been looking for some light weeknight cleaning at his Midtown shop and placed notice with a tri-state temp agency. Simona had signed up with the group in order to round out her main paycheck and, upon receiving a call for an interview, immediately accepted. It was the only way she'd make rent this month, and it was worth hustling across the river. "This is a cleaning position," Mr. Perlman had wheezed quietly during their initial meeting. "There will be no handling of product. There will be no music played. There will be no one else authorized to accompany you. You must arrive no earlier than 8 o'clock each evening, and you will be paid each night for 3 hours of labor. I am aware that the schedule is a bit off, but it is non-negotiable due to business hours. You will not be allowed to eat while working. You must wear black cotton gloves at all times while on premises." He handed her a thick set of keys, pressing them into her open palm with his final command: "And you will always conclude the evening by feeding the piranhas." The red-bellied piranhas swam in a floor-to-ceiling tank that sat central in the showroom. It was a large glass reservoir with trailing plants and rocks, lit from beneath by dull spotlights. A pile of wood rose from the middle, towering toward the surface. It was the perfect hiding spot, and from it could be seen faint metallic glimmers of the barbarians within. Now on the street, Simona shivered, both from the thought of this and from the unseasonable cold, as she walked in the direction of Perlman's. It was early November, and for once the snowy streets matched the unseasonably early holiday decorations that descended upon the borough as soon as Halloween had ended. She slipped into the alley and gripped the set of keys tightly in her hand, allowing them to jaggedly poke from her clenched fist like tiny serrated knives. Standing at the back door, she took a moment to breathe deeply on the key that was to permit her entry. It was so cold out that she worried it might snap as she wedged it into the lock, which looked to be nearly frozen. But the key slid in with limited objection, and the door opened, Simona locking it behind her and taking care to flip the 3 inner deadbolts. Mr. Perlman left the store lights on to their highest wattage, which rendered her temporarily sightless. The showroom itself appeared frosted, from its white walls to the reflective glass cases and mirror-finished floor. She felt underdressed, even for a cleaning job. A small door off the main gallery led to Mr. Perlman's office, which was where she was to find a list of instructions. The room was as dark as it had been when she visited the week prior, and Mr. Perlman had left the computer on so that its screensaver projected itself onto the walls behind the desk. The display of Technicolor brilliance ghosted across the wall in a solitary dance, touchlessly landing upon Simona's face as she sat down. A note was taped beneath the computer monitor. "Good evening, Mr. Pinto. All cleaning materials may be found in the utility closet next to the bathroom, including new rags for dusting and polishing. Please discard them at the end of the evening, as they are to be used but once. All glass and metal surfaces must be cleaned. The inside of all jewelry cases must be vacuumed and wiped with a damp cloth. You will find 5 packages of beef in the refrigerator in my office, meant solely for the fish. Thank you." Simona departed the darkened office and returned to the showroom hauling a bucket of cold water and a pile of folded black rags tucked beneath her left arm. For the better part of the evening, she worked in silence, scrubbing and polishing the intricate metal brackets of the display cases, taking care not to saturate the velvet innards as she wiped them down with the damp cloth. Though she hadn't thought it possible, the place shone brighter when she finished nearly 2 hours later. One task remained. Retrieving the beef and a rickety stepladder, she approached the fish. During her interview, Simona had hardly glanced at the lustrous tank for worry that Mr. Perlman would sense her fear and decide not to hire her. But now that she was alone, she relished in her solitude and stood at the top of the ladder, staring into the water. How funny, she thought, to find tropical fish in a frozen metropolis. Were these creatures aware of how far they were from their natural home, or had they lived amongst diamonds and jewels for their entire existence? Simona caught herself absent-mindedly stroking a flank cut that gently oozed blood onto her black cloth gloves and drew her back to the task at hand. She took a deep breath and placed the first steak gingerly into the water, then proceeded to do the same with the other offerings. One by one, the fish emerged from their wooden grotto and swam toward the crimson trail as the stakes descended like bombs. Thinking the stakes would be more than enough to satiate these demons, Simona removed one glove and let her hand rest lightly upon the water so that it barely broke the surface tension. The water was warm, nearly 80 degrees. It felt comforting after hours of scrubbing. Looking deep into the tank, it was from her peripheral vision that she saw one fish begin to swim toward her. She pulled her hand out, drawing in a quick breath as she retracted and recollected. "Hey there, little guy," she cooed nervously at him in an attempt to face her fear. "Are you coming over to thank me? Because I—" Her words hung sharply at an abrupt halt, as though stopped at the crest of a hill. The piranha, seemingly hell-bent on a more oxygen-rich dining experience, launched itself out of the tank in a perfect arc and landed directly on the polished floor. "Shit," Simona said under her breath, swearing similarly with each step she took down the ladder. The piranha flopped, gracing the outside of the empty display cases with a new coat of salty spray. That was going to take further elbow grease to remove, but Simona was more concerned at the moment with how she was going to get this fish back into the tank without becoming its next meal. "All right, you can do this," she told herself, unsure whether she was speaking to the fish or giving herself a pep talk. "It's just like a bug, but bigger and with much sharper teeth." Simona remembered seeing a box of velveteen jewelry pouches beneath one of the display cases, which would have to do on such short notice. Grabbing one, she returned to find the fish lying still on the ground. Surely it couldn't be dead. It was only out of the water for a minute or two. The fish began to emit a series of low tones, similar to a drum being beaten repeatedly. When Simona knelt next to the fish, the rhythm began to pick up until it matched the rapid pace of her heartbeat. Acting quickly, she scooped the fish into the bag and looked inside. The piranha's mouth reached toward the bag's opening. Its jaws snapped swiftly together as its opaque teeth gnashed desperately. The teeth looked like bony icicles jutting from pink flesh, the small ridges around their tips like sharpened mountain peaks. Simona turned her attention back to the glass tank behind her as the tiny fish thrummed in her hands. The other fish in the tank paid no mind to their missing comrade and continued to gnaw at what remained of their supper. Simona climbed the ladder 2 rungs at a time and flung the fish, bag and all, back into the tank. Ambling once more back down the ladder, she watched the bag float at the top and hoped that, as in a cartoon, the little guy might emerge, shake his head back and forth, and rid himself of the misadventure. But no such movement came back from the black bag, which began to sink slowly past chaos and toward the gravelly depths. Simona thought momentarily about scooping the fish out, but repressed this foolhardy instinct to reach into a flesh-eating frenzy. She decided that the safest thing to do would be to let nature eventually take its course. Meat was meat, after all. The piranhas would discover the bag and its contents, a dessert course perhaps, and Mr. Perlman wouldn't be any bit the wiser. At Port Authority, Simona mindlessly fondled the antique pocket watch she kept in her coat pocket, willing her bus to be, for once, on schedule. Like most of her belongings, the watch had belonged to someone else before winding up in her possession. Her furniture, her jewelry, her clothes, even the mattress and bed linens came from relatives determined to enmesh themselves into every element of her life. Her apartment had even been her grandmother's and was willed to Simona upon her grandmother's death. An hour later, she was back in Weehawken with the same keys in hand, this time not bothering to warm them with her breath. This was the familiar routine. The door to her apartment was older and seemed to exhale as she touched it, as though it had been waiting eagerly for her to come back. She stepped inside, turned off the post light, sighed. Sanctuary, at last. "Hey, Pippa," she called to her cat, a former stray who preferred to sleep in baskets of dirty laundry than to spend time with her owner. Simona had found the cat sleeping outside last winter, the feline's orange fur making her acutely visible in the 1,000 shades of carnarvon gray. It was more a coexistence than a relationship, one Simona could handle without too much regret now that she was spending her evenings away. I got one more paragraph. Actually 2, but they're good. She checked the answering machine, a little red light blinking silently like a broken alarm clock. The voice that greeted her belonged to her mother, calling to tell her about a date she'd been on that night and to lament as to her daughter's singleness. Simona found comfort in returning home alone to sleep briefly in her twin bed. A double or queen meant that you had someone in your life to take up space, and she wasn't about to cram any more potential problems into her already vacuous life. Home was respite, especially after this evening. Making a cup of tea and some buttered toast, she shuffled across the well-worn carpet and into her bedroom. The room was home to a menagerie of plants, leaving the space more a greenhouse than a suitable set of sleeping quarters. Simona liked the way Pippa roamed through as if she were a lion on the prowl, pouncing on stink bugs that she presented to her owner as tiny treasures. Even the cat wanted to provide for Simona, who would prefer the bugs to be left to their own devices. The steam heat hissed and clicked as it came up from the bowels of the house, and Simona wrapped herself in a quilt that her grandmother had made. She sank into the floor, taking solace in the house's warmth and lack of aquatic life. Outside, a snowflake pressed itself against the window, then disappeared. Thank you.